All right, today is definitely one of those strange days. Now, Apple just updated the iPad Pro and the iPad, and it is very strange. I'm going to explain all of it in this video. So let's start off with the iPad Pro because that's a pretty easy update to cover. If you've been following along on the channel, we've been talking a lot about the iPad Pro rumors, and basically I was telling you to not expect much, and that's basically what we got. We got a very minor spec upgrade. Apple is replacing the M1 chip that was in the iPad Pro with an M2 chip. No big shock there. Very similar to what they did on the Touch Bar MacBook Pro. That update basically just took the M1 chip, put an M2 chip in it. That's what's happening to the iPad Pro. And if you want to be more generous, they are adding Wi-Fi 6E. I think this is like the first Apple device with actual Wi-Fi 6E. So if you have a Wi-Fi 6E router, you're also going to get probably, I guess, increased Wi-Fi speeds. And then on top of that, if I guess you want to, give them even more credit, they did add some new Apple Pencil functionality where you can hover the Apple Pencil over the iPad Pro. Apparently that M2 chip is going to interpret those signals to determine the exact position of the Apple Pencil and kind of give you like a little preview of where the tip is going to land. So again, that is a small update to the iPad Pro, but it is an update. But basically, the main takeaway for this iPad Pro is that it's just an M2 spec upgrade. Even the display on the 11-inch is not getting upgraded. It's still a liquid retina display, and that amazing, really gorgeous mini LED display is still exclusive to the 12.9-inch model. All of the prices, from what I can see, are exactly the same. All of the storage configurations are the same. The only toss-up I don't know with this new M2 iPad Pro is if they increase the memory on these models. We'll probably find that out more as we actually get these in hand, and we can kind of see in Geekbench how much memory is allocated to each model. So maybe like the higher end storage tiers for this iPad Pro could possibly have 24 gigabytes of max memory like they do on the higher end M2 Mac configurations. Right now, the M1 iPad Pro has 8 gigabytes and 16 gigabytes, depending on which storage configuration you order. So that's the iPad Pro update, a spec bump. But then we actually got a pretty exciting update to the base model iPad. This is a major update. I've seen a lot of people upset about this update online, and I don't get it because I looked at this update and I went, wow, I can't believe they're actually doing this. So the iPad base model is getting basically the same design as the current iPad Air, which is a $600 tablet. So it's going to have a 10.9-inch liquid retina display. It's going to have reduced bezels, just like the 10.9-inch iPad Air. It is getting rid of the home button. It is moving Touch ID to the power button, just like the iPad Air. And it looks like an iPad Air, except it actually comes in like these really bright, vibrant colors, which I have been asking Apple to put on their iPad for so long now, because with the iPad Air, it's just like this set of really muted colors. And just based on the preview on Apple's website, you got like a bright yellow, vibrant color, a bright pink, vibrant color, blue, and then of course your silver. So in terms of looks, this looks very similar to an iPad Air, which I think is a good thing. And on the inside, it's also getting a spec bump to the A14 chip. That is a very competent chip. It's very powerful, and it's going to be a great chip inside of that base level, entry level iPad. Now, the price increase on this did increase, right? There was a price increase, and the iPad price before was almost like unbelievably good for that 9th generation iPad. It came in at $329. That was like a steal. I've said it for like the past few years that was like the best deal in tech, that $329 iPad. Yeah, what a great deal. But because it is incorporating the new design of the iPad Air into this base model iPad, you have to expect a price increase, because why would people buy the iPad Air if this iPad exists at a really low price point? So unfortunately, Apple did raise the price, and they raised it about $50 more than I thought I would. So it's now $450. So that's a pretty big price increase for the $329 version. So much so, in fact, that Apple actually still sells the older iPad with the home button, the 9th generation version, for $329 on their website. So if you still want a cheap iPad, as long as you don't mind the old design, Apple still sells that iPad, and it actually might be worth it depending on what you're looking for. But I do actually think that this price increase, even though I didn't want it to be this much, I still think it's a fair price for this iPad, because in a lot of ways, we are basically getting an iPad Air at a cheaper price point And when I think about the iPad in historical terms, the iPad debuted at $500. That was the original price point for an iPad. When you consider this new iPad, this 10th generation iPad, what you're getting with it, the new design, the feature set, $450 being $50 cheaper than the original iPad, I can't look at that as a bad deal. So I know a lot of people are upset about the price increase, but I still can't look at it as a bad deal. It looks to be a good value still. But this is also a strange iPad. I said it in the beginning. This is one of the strangest product releases that I have ever seen from Apple, from the iPad Pro to this iPad, because there are so many different decisions that went into each product that are almost maddening. And I would say the first thing with the iPad that is really confusing to me is that it gets the camera in the landscape orientation. Now, that's a good thing, I think. I think people have been wanting the iPad camera, the front-facing camera, to move to landscape orientation for quite a while now, because that's how most people use their iPads nowadays, especially if you're using multitasking, and especially if you have it docked on a keyboard. You want that camera right in landscape mode, right in the center, so when you're looking at the iPad, the camera's center, it's not off to the side, so you don't have to look off to the side. You can actually look right directly in the center, and it's gonna look more natural. It's not gonna look as awkward. And Apple did that with the base iPad. Congratulations, that's a great thing to have. But the iPad Pro still has the camera in portrait orientation. That is super confusing. I don't know why that happened. If you wanted to ask, conspiracy theory Greg, why this is the case, I would say that because this iPad Pro was basically just a spec bump to the M2 chip, I would wager there is a more significant redesign for the iPad Pro coming probably next year. I think that Apple didn't have this redesign ready. They still wanted to give it a spec update before the holiday season, because I feel like it's better to update these products, even if they're small, with the most modern specs, because people are still gonna buy them, especially before the holiday season. But if you're asking me should I wait? Well, if you wanted a more substantial upgrade, I feel like one is coming, because I feel like Apple could have switched the orientation of the camera on the iPad Pro to landscape pretty easily, but they didn't. So that probably means there's a more significant redesign coming where the camera is going to be in landscape. Maybe they're going to do reduced bezels. Maybe they'll do like an iPad Pro dynamic island or something like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as possibilities of what could be new with the design. But the fact that it's not there on the iPad Pro signals to me that there is a much bigger update to this iPad Pro coming sometime, right? Like, it just wasn't ready now, but it's going to be there eventually. The other strange and maddening thing has to do with the base model iPad. Now, there's a lot of great updates to this iPad. I think it looks like a great tablet, but there's weirdness going on. So Apple updated this iPad to USB-C. That was another update that came along with it. I should also mention that they did upgrade the rear camera to 12 megapixels, right? In a lot of ways, this is just an iPad Air. Like, think about all the things the iPad Air has, it's brought down to the iPad. But what's different than the iPad Air and the iPad Pro is that the smart connector for this iPad is on the bottom. It's still on the side. It's not on the back. And Apple actually introduced a new keyboard to go along with this iPad, a whole separate keyboard that only works with this iPad. And it's like this new, it actually looks really cool. It's like a new folio keyboard. You can separate the folio from the keyboard if you just want to bring your iPad along in tablet mode and still have it protected in a case. That's really cool. And the keyboard itself also looks kind of better than the Magic Keyboard with the floating hinge for the iPad Pro and the iPad Air, because it actually has a full row of function keys on the top, which is strange for Apple. It also has like a kickstand mechanism, so I guess it's not as cool as the floating keyboard, but yeah, it does have a full row of function keys. But the maddening part to me is, I thought that when Apple moved this design, one of the reasons why they would move to this flat design for the regular iPad with USB-C was so they could integrate the accessories across the entire lineup. Because how maddening is it if you actually have one of these spare Magic Keyboards laying around, or if you buy an iPad and then you get this new keyboard and you want to upgrade to an iPad Pro one day, that keyboard is useless now. So Apple not unifying the accessories for this iPad is just so strange to me. Why didn't they put the smart connector on the back? Why didn't they give it support for the, Magic Keyboard for the Pro and the Air? Why not? I feel like that would have been so much easier. You could have still introduced a cheaper keyboard alongside of it and people would have been happy, but why restrict us by putting the smart connector on the side still? And then, even stranger than that, it gets even stranger. Apple gave this iPad USB-C, but it doesn't support the second generation Apple Pencil. It does not have magnetic charging on the side. And stranger than that, Apple is still supporting the first generation Apple Pencil. Why? And even stranger than that, if you have a first generation Apple Pencil, because this new iPad has USB-C, you have to buy a $10 adapter to attach it to your iPad. Is that a big deal? No, it's $10. But the strangeness of that product decision to not just put the magnetic charging strip and the pairing on the iPad when you're moving it to flat sides, when you're increasing the price to $450, that strangeness, that is so weird to me. I don't understand the product decisions that Apple made with the smart connector placement and not just giving it the second generation Apple Pencil. I just don't get why you'd want to keep these legacy accessories alive still. And I feel like maybe if you did it to hit a cheaper price point, fine. But at $450, I feel like there's room in the budget to add these things. So that's just me. All right. I guess I'll try and give you some advice on if you should buy these iPads. Listen, if you've wanted an iPad Pro and you don't feel like waiting a year, it'd probably take another year to update this design. Well, you're gonna get a little bit of a spec upgrade. That's fine. And it's gonna have the M2 chip. It's gonna have Wi-Fi 6E. They're the same prices as the old iPad Pros. People are getting so mad that they updated the iPad Pros and calling it like a cash grab. It's but if you're gonna buy an iPad for the holiday season, don't you want the latest specs? I know this isn't a big update and you might be disappointed. There's no reason to replace your M1 iPad Pro. It's fine, it's gonna run fine. But if you've been waiting for an iPad for a while and you skipped the M1 iPad Pro and you've just been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and you really want a new iPad Pro, I think it's better to get even a small update just to ensure that you have the latest specs, even if it's not a new redesign or anything like that. I think updating these things in a timely manner, at least once a year, just helps customers get the best possible product at the time. It's not like they increased the price on it. It's still the same price. You're just getting a little bit of an upgrade. Now, the base model iPad is a pretty major upgrade. It makes me question whether or not you should even get an iPad Air. The iPad Air at $600 for the same 64 gigabytes compared to the $450 iPad, at least on paper as I'm looking at it, with the same screen technology, what looks to be the same cameras, the landscape orientation for the iPad, the cool new keyboard, maybe you like that. It's actually cheaper at $250. This iPad looks like a good deal. I'm just gonna say it. I'm really excited for it. I think it looks like a good deal. I think there's a lot of strange product decisions that Apple shouldn't have made with the product. But overall, as I look at it, for $450 for an iPad, this looks like a really good iPad. And it looks like it's gonna be a really good experience for people that buy it. If you're an Apple Pencil user, maybe don't buy this iPad. Maybe then the iPad Air is worth it. But if you're just getting a standard tablet, if you want a keyboard attachment, this iPad looks good. With the A14 chip, it's gonna be really powerful. I don't think it's gonna get the Stage Manager feature though, but so far, at least in the betas, that really hasn't been the best way to use your iPad. The standard way of using your iPad still seems to be the best. So yeah, for $450 for that base model iPad, I think it's worth it. I think it is worth it. All right, so that's gonna be it for this video. I hope it helped you out. I hope you enjoyed my reaction to this because I have not been this confused about an Apple product lineup in quite some time. So I still need some time to process these decisions that Apple made. I'll probably do another video going more in depth on these iPads pretty soon. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can see that video. And make sure you like this video if you liked it. And I'll see you soon. So take care, everyone. See you next time. Why'd they do that? Why'd they make that decision? I don't get it. I don't get it.